You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they come into us. It's time to see what's making the headlines with the Daily Mirror columnist Susie Boniface and the broadcaster and psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Well, the Eye is reporting that the former Duke of York is in line for a huge £558,000 payout for Royal Lodge, although much of that could end up going to repair work on the property. The Guardian points out that the six-figure sum as compensation to Andrew works out to be several times more than his Navy pension. The Times carries claims that the former Duke made the decision to leave Royal Lodge after he lost the support of his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson. The Mail hears that William and Kate thought the only way forward was a clean break from Andrew. The Telegraph understands that Labour MPs are pushing for legislation to be introduced to Parliament, which would remove Andrew from the line of succession altogether. The Sun reports that Andrew, along with his large collection of teddy bears, has been given 3 months to move out of Royal Lodge. They've spoken with residents of Sandringham, where he'll be moving to. Their message: we can't bear him either. While the Star cheekily carries a picture of a removal van outside Windsor Castle, complete with the paper's own logo and their infamous Liz Truss lettuce head. A different story in the FT. They say that the Chancellor hopes to raise several £billion through a budget tax raid on the owners of expensive homes by creating new council tax bans. And we're joined tonight by Susie Boniface and Lucy Beresford to take us through the papers. Good to see you both. We are starting with the story on the front page of most of the newspapers still, and that is Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to receive a six-figure sum and stipend from the King once he leaves Royal Lodge. Lucy.
Yes, I mean, it's a story that we've been following for so many weeks, but it does really seem as if this is a man who is now going to be sent into exile. So the story on the front page of The Guardian kind of rubs salt into the wound that you think the story is over, but no, he might actually be getting this six-figure sum. Now, for sure, the property apparently has now got some damp or some mould, and therefore the money that he gets might have to then be paid back in order to pay some of that repair work. But I think a lot of people will find it very hard to imagine that this man is going to be going to a new property, which presumably isn't that modest. It's going to be on the Sandringham estate. It's going to be funded by his brother, King Charles. And he already has a naval pension. So this is someone who's got his own resources, one might say. Does he really need to actually have so much given to him by the family? It's very clear that the family just really want to pay as much money as it can to make this problem go away. And that's because he really is a problem for the monarchy, a thorn in their side.
And Susie, will this be seen as punishment, do you think?
We've used that, I've heard that word a lot in the last sort of 24 hours or so since it was announced that Andrew was losing his titles. Punishment, fall from grace, shame. To everyone, I think, watching this at home, this man's got a free house, a double-barrelled name and free bed and board for life. That's not a punishment for anybody. He strenuously denies having done anything that deserves a punishment, of course, but I think what most people would expect is that he is not living on the taxpayer's dime anymore. Royal Lodge, where he's been in Windsor, has been subsidised by taxpayers because the amount that he's paid is not the amount that we would have got on the open market had it been rented. Now, if the King Charles pays for him privately to stay in Sandringham, that's one thing, although technically that's our money too. But if there's any kind of police security for him there, which he would probably need, that's going to come out of our pockets as well. And I think there needs to be I think a better look at the royal finances in terms of, you know, every single taxpayer pound that gets spent by government has to be judged in terms of value for money. And Andrew, all these years, has not had that judgment made about him, and nor have many other of the royals, working or otherwise. And I think we have to start applying those principles on how we spend our tax money to the royals as well. And if they are worth the money that they cost, absolutely fine. But let's start assessing it. Let's start being honest about it. And if they're not, then it's time, you know, this man does have enough money, he should have some personal money of his own, after various ski chalets that have been sold and goodness knows what else, and deals that he's done and business that he's operated in, then he should be able to provide himself a mortgage-free home somewhere. I appreciate he can't live in a semi in Dorking, but, you know.
I think the problem is that this man never has had a real job since he left the Navy. So he's not actually had a regular income. So the idea that actually he does have access to cash or access to funds is probably not true, which is why, I mean, we don't know who facilitated the purchase of the chalet in Verbier and therefore who maybe got the funds when they sold the chalet in Verbier. And it's always very murky. And I think that's part of the problem, is that there isn't this transparency that you feel you ought to have as a citizen of the UK if your taxes are going to support this kind of man.
Interesting point you raise, Susie, about the security. Will he still have that? Because although his titles have been taken away, he is still a member of the royal family.
Well, he will still be a security risk as far as the local police force in Norfolk are going to be concerned. And they will have to spend some amount of council taxpayers' funds making sure they keep an eye on him. But I think I'm right in saying that the King withdrew his official funded security some time ago. So his personal protection officers haven't been there in the way they have been previously. But he's been able to fund his own protection. And perhaps some of the people that he's gone to meet or done business with may have had their own bodyguards that he's benefited from. But I think the fact is that the royals, because the nature of their position, they have a billionaire's lifestyle. And most of them do not have a billionaire's income. There's only two of them got a billionaire's income, and it's the monarch and the heir to the throne. Everybody else is dependent upon them in some way and on their goodwill. And what seems to be happening here is that rather than punishment, and rather take exception to what you said about brushing him off and making him go away, they're keeping him close. They're keeping him under their wing. They're making him dependent. They're paying for him, and they're keeping him as tight and in the tent as they possibly can. And the question must be asked, well, what would happen if they didn't do that? What would happen if they said, all right, Andrew, go about your business. You're a grown man. Go and do business. Go and, you know, be a broker for international despots or businessmen, whatever you want to do. Go and make your money that way. Well, we don't care, you're own. What would happen then? You know, what is it that they're trying to stop happening if he were to be out in the wild somehow?
Lucy, let's look at the front page of the Mirror. Their headline there, King listened to the people. And they're suggesting that after he was heckled publicly about Andrew, that was the turning point.
Yes, funnily enough, when that did actually happen, I remember thinking the King will have been absolutely furious about that. Only a couple of days prior to that, he had gone to Rome and prayed, or gone to the Vatican City and prayed with the Pope. And there was a big fear that the Andrew story would overshadow that, and it didn't actually seem to. And then suddenly, out of the blue, you got a situation which could easily be replicated at any other visit that the King or the Queen or any other member of the royal family made in the future, which was that a member of the public, irrespective of whether they are monarchists or not, they were actually going to challenge and make that event, that was going to be the story of the event. The story wasn't about the King and Queen Camilla going to whatever the event was. It was about the fact that they were heckled. And I suspect that that was the moment at which it really brought home to King Charles quite what impact it was actually having on him doing his day-to-day job. And so I'm not surprised that events have moved as quickly as they have.
Although we did speak to the royal commentator, Jenny Bond, former royal correspondent, and she was saying that negotiations have been going on for some time prior to this event. So it's something that the King has been considering for some time, and they've been negotiating with Andrew what they could do.
Yeah, it's been going on 15 years since we first saw that photograph of Andrew with Epstein, which was wrong then. Never mind taking 15 years for people to realise there may have been more to it. In a lot of other papers, they're talking about repeating some of the courtiers, the royal spin coming out of the palace going, the King has acted swiftly, he's been decisive, we can't carry on, he's listened to the people, all this guff. A fortnight ago, Gillian, you and I were both sat here, and I think it was with Mark Wallace, doing a paper review on a Friday night, and Prince Andrew had just announced that he was not going to be using the title Duke of York anymore. He would stay Duke of York, but he wouldn't use it, because he was realising he was being a distraction to the royal family. And I said, usually on a Friday night when that happens, it means that the Sunday papers have got a real zinger of a story. And lo and behold, that Sunday broke the news that he had emailed Jeffrey Epstein months after he said he'd cut off contact with him, talking about seeing him again. We've had some more of those emails that's come out in the last 24 hours as well. And what's happened in the past fortnight, you know, that with refusal to use the title Duke of York was supposed to be enough. That was a disgrace. That was a punishment. It was a fall from grace, Lucy. You know, and now, a fortnight later, the King has been forced to do this.
But that's what I'm saying. I think this was the moment at which he actually thought, this is affecting me doing my job. It suddenly brought home to him. Everything else was just talking around the subject. This was, I'm out doing what I feel I do best, which is representing the monarchy in my country. And the story isn't about me anymore. It's about the head.
What's happened to Andrew has been that sort of death by 1,000 cuts. Sorry, Julia, of constantly withdrawing something from him. He's not going to be a working royal. He's not going to be a trade envoy. He's not going to be this. He's not going to be that. And if they just acted decisively at the beginning.
And the story we're getting actually is that, as you're showing on the Daily Mail there, which is actually William and Kate have been pushing this a lot, that one gets the sense that if they had been in charge, that if William was king, this would have been settled a long time ago.
Well, actually, what we read, he's been quite harsh, and we saw he was very cool to his uncle when they were last seen together publicly, and that was noted. And also, William had come out to say that at his coronation, his uncle wouldn't be there, he wouldn't be in public life when he were king. Yeah. So sort of got his dad to sort it out before he takes over the reins.
Yeah.
It was plainly coming anyway. Andrew must have realised that if he didn't go now under King Charles's terms with whatever offer Charles was making, the offer that was going to come down the line from William was going to be a lot worse, so take it now.
Yeah, William would be harsher. The Times, page 1, Andrew quit fight after losing loyalty of ex-wife. That's their headline. Lucy?
Yeah, I'm quite intrigued by this because they've tried to give the impression for, well, probably over a decade now, that they are the happiest divorced couple ever because they live under the same roof. But the implication of this story is that it was only once Sarah Ferguson had decided that she needed now, of all times, to have a clean break and get on with her own life, that somehow that left Andrew abandoned, and that as if she really was this very potent figure in his life. Now, you could argue about what the nature of their relationship was and the power that she did have over him, despite the fact that they were divorced. I've often wondered what kind of maternal role she played in his life. But at the same time, she's now got to go off and do his own thing. Similarly, he's got to do it. But I think the other part of this story, which I also find fascinating, is that there have been these other emails that have come out that have been released from the States, which are to do with the fact that Andrew was said to be being introduced to Jess Staley, who used to be the CEO of Barclays. He was also working for JP Morgan. And this is a story now that Andrew is, in effect, a private citizen. That's where the focus of this story is going to shift, because in America, they may also start to release those Epstein files once they get that final signature, that actually there is some sense in which this could now get really sticky legally.
And that's what the family of Virginia Giuffre are calling for, that they're hoping that the King can appeal to Donald Trump to release the Epstein files.
Well, it's a really sticky situation, what's happening in America. So, obviously, Trump is connected to the Epstein scandal as well. Again, says he did nothing wrong. But because there is a government shutdown over finances in the States, the House of Representatives is not in session. That means that a new person who's been elected cannot be sworn in, which means that they cannot have the vote that would open those Epstein files. So as long as this financial sort of standoff in the States is carrying on, which is benefiting Trump politically at the moment, but may start to harm him after a while, then there won't be that vote and you won't release the Epstein files. And at the same time, this is Trump who's had 2 historic state visits now with the Queen, and now the King, and doesn't want to upset them, having been around to tea twice, but is only going to have to. But regardless of what happens in the States, there are questions, I think, to be asked in this country about what the Met and what the Palace knew about these allegations, because they will have been told, they should have been told, by Royal Protection Officers who were, with Andrew and carrying out security checks around him and the people that he met as a normal part of security protocol. They must have known about the allegations, which were beginning to be investigated and in the States long before Andrew finally cut off ties with him. And it must have gone up the chain of command, because there would have been a blackmail risk. There would have been other security risks connected to it. So who knew? What did they say? And how far up the chain did it go? Did it get as far as the palace? Did someone overrule?
And
What?
presumably, if there were protection officers outside Epstein's house, if you were a girl in that house and you left and were distressed or traumatised by what you'd gone through, and you realised that there were just police everywhere around, you would have just thought, I've got nowhere to go here. I've got no one's going to believe me. If the police are on site, kind of on side, I'm lost.
Well, those police officers as well, if something bad has been going on in their house, even if they didn't know about it or witness it, they're potentially, going to be caught for some kind of misconduct of their own for not investigating or going further, or you can commit misconduct in public office if you've done an unlawful act in the course of your work and it's caused someone else injury. And in the case of those girls, if there was anything those police officers did to turn a blind eye, thinking maybe at the time it was somehow slightly innocent, or even maybe, but if it's turned out that it has been something severe, then they're going to be on the hook for things as well. So I think that the scandal is actually going to move to government and to the Met Police and the Royal Protection Command, and who knew what when.
OK. Susie and Lucy, thank you very much for a moment. We've just brought up the Daily Telegraph. We haven't got time to go through it now, but that was bringing the argument to Parliament and the line of Succession MPs pushing to erase Andrew from that line. We'll talk a bit more after the break. Coming up, why are people with private jets renting them to other people with private jets? Confused? We'll discuss that next. Stay with us.
I'm David Blevins, one of Sky's US correspondents, based in Washington, D.C.
Conor, what did you say to the President? What did you say?
He's had a great meeting with him. He's a great man.
David Blevins from Sky News. Fire chiefs say that they're really stretched to the limit and running out of water. What have you got to say to that? Sky News in the UK. Why do you think the President should intervene on Iran?
I think Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon is an acute threat to the national security of the United States.
Free wherever you get your news.
Big stories don't always come from big cities. I'm Lisa Dowd and I'm Sky's Midlands correspondent.
You are not getting in this elevator, okay?
The judge made it very clear that she could see no justifiable reason why Sakulas wasn't here facing British justice.
I promised I would get him justice.
Free wherever you get your news. This is what they're up against. The wind is the really big problem. It is back-breaking work and the smoke is thick. It's been working well. Water levels are dropping, but no one knows what impact further rain will have. What would you do if this place wasn't open? This is the exact spot in Nottingham where their 19-year-old son, Barnaby Webber, lost his life.
I just think it's so cruel and so harsh.
It's really scary. We're terrified.
In this community, I'm told that everybody knows someone affected by COVID.
Hopefully this will be the last wave.
Sky News gets the full story first. Change seems tantalisingly close in this corner of the UK. Wales was the first to introduce the plastic bag charge. It's legal to let go. Set the speed and take the hands off. It's almost driverless, but not quite. Hans is a highly trained police dog. The force is incredible. It's really frightening, actually. This is my patch, my specialism. It's also my home.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force.
It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
I I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support.
What country are you
From the UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, Susie Boniface and Lucy Beresford. Let's have a look at the Express first of all. The headline there: Army is not safe for young women. This is the mother of gunner Jaisley Beck, and she's claiming that the Army is not safe for young women after her daughter was sexually assaulted. The attacker has been jailed for just 12 weeks, and she's saying now that any investigations of this nature in future should be done outside of the Army, Lucy.
Yeah, you would have to agree with her in terms of the facts. I mean, that is a heartbreaking photo, knowing that that young, beautiful girl with her whole life ahead of her, who had gone into the Army because she really believed it would give her the most exciting and incredible life, took her own life because, in effect, she wasn't heard, she wasn't believed, she wasn't listened to. And that's the system, and therefore the very system that ought to have protected her was the system that really let her down. And this is what her mother wants to draw attention to, is that Jaisley Beck was sexually assaulted, and when she first tried to raise the awareness of this, she wasn't believed. And now, to add insult to injury, that person has actually been jailed, but only 12 weeks. I mean, this is just beyond belief. So what you really want, I suppose, is to feel that that kind of investigation would happen outside, that it wouldn't be an internal investigation, because the sergeant who's been jailed is, you know, a career sergeant, 39 years old. He's obviously maybe got allies within the Army. It feels like marking your own homework. It's just never going to be a good idea when it's dealing with something that's tragic.
And when you get court-martialed, that's when you get that kind of penalty that's 12 weeks. And it really, not just that it should be investigated externally, but the punishment should just be independent as well. It's not about military discipline in the same way as some internal regulatory issues that courts-martial should deal with. This is a crime, and it's as simple as that, and soldiers are not immune from committing those or being victims of them. And, you know, the mum is absolutely right. This poor girl who was so terrified by the assault that she had to lock herself in the car the next morning and rang her mum. And then she finds out the guy's been promoted and she was forced to accept a letter of apology from him, like that was enough. And at the same time, there was a second officer who was harassing her and stalking her with thousands of texts and just obviously broke her will to live between the two of them. It's devastating. It's not what the military should be doing, and it's not what our politicians should be allowing that military to continue. And unfortunately, the MOD is very good at saying the right thing and saying, we will do this and we will be better and dum-de-dum. And it never seems to quite work out.
We've just got under a minute, Lucy. We'll go to the final story that we teased, why people are with private jets are renting them out to other people with private jets.
Well, yeah, I mean, tragic story, obviously. If you
the world's smallest violin is
absolutely,
being played now.
but if you aren't able to use your private jet because they haven't got the parts or whatever, you can actually now lease someone else's private jet, and it's about $50,000 for
so much cheaper.
A couple of days.
Such a reasonable price
I don't
compared
understand
to
why
the
people
actual cost of a jet.
Why are people not doing that on a regular basis? I really don't know. But wealth advisors and industry experts saying that they just want to get some kind of benefit of their asset, which I suppose is how these people become rich in the first place.
Nobody feels sorry for them.
No.
And we run out of time. Lucy and Susie, thank you very much. Let's take a look at the weather for you now. Coming up next, all the very latest on reaction to Andrew.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.